Have you ever noticed that the more you open up to family, the more tangled everything becomes? You start off wanting to be honest, to stay close, to feel connected. But somehow, the more you share, the less peace you seem to have. It's something many of us learn the hard way after 65. And it's not because our families don't love us. It's because love is complicated. Expectations, opinions, and emotions, they all come bundled in. And when you start putting everything on the table, it can invite reactions you never expected. I used to believe that complete honesty was the best way to keep my family close. I really did. I thought if I just told them everything, it would show them I trusted them. But over time, I realized something quietly powerful. Not every truth needs to be spoken, not because it's shameful, but because peace in this stage of life is worth protecting. You earn that right after all you've been through. So in this video, I want to talk with you, not lecture, just talk about 5 things I've learned are better kept to yourself after 65. Not to be secretive, but to be wise. If you've ever felt drained after sharing too much or found yourself wishing you'd stayed quiet in a conversation, then this message is for you. And if you're new here, welcome. We're building a kind, thoughtful space for seniors who want to live these next years with dignity, calm, and strength. Let's get started. The first secret is a big one, your exact financial situation. Now, I know what you're thinking. We've always been told to be transparent with our families. We want to avoid surprises down the road, right? We think if I let them know how much I've saved, how I've structured things, what I plan to do with the money, I'll be protecting everyone from future confusion. That's what I used to think too. But here's the truth no one tells you. The moment you fully open that financial curtain, the dynamics start to shift. Sometimes subtly, sometimes quickly. Let me tell you about Martin. He's 81 now, a retired engineer who spent his life budgeting carefully and investing modestly. A soft-spoken man with a sharp mind and a warm heart. A few years ago, thinking it would bring peace of mind, Martin sat down with his 2 adult sons and shared everything. His bank accounts, his pension, the house deed, his plans for distributing the estate. He even printed out spreadsheets to show how well he'd manage things. He expected relief, gratitude maybe. What he got instead were questions. A lot of questions. Dad, why are you still living in such a big place? Shouldn't you sell and move into assisted living before something happens? What's your plan if you need long-term care? One son even suggested moving in to help manage the finances, just in case something came up. It was all said with concern, with love. But over time, Martin started to feel boxed in, as if every decision now needed someone else's approval. And it didn't stop there. Once the numbers were out, every little spending decision seemed open to judgment. A vacation? Should you really be flying at your age? A new recliner? Seems expensive, Dad. Even things as small as buying a new pair of shoes came with commentary. And what hurt most, Martin told me this himself, wasn't that his sons didn't care. It was that they cared so loudly, so constantly, that he felt like he was no longer in charge of his own life. Here's the reality. Once you open that door, it's hard to close it again. Even the kindest family members can overstep without realizing it. And in less fortunate situations, people who were once distant suddenly take a keen interest in your money. Not you, your money. That distant cousin who never called, suddenly they want to visit. That grandchild who always forgot your birthday, now they're asking about your will. I'm not saying you shouldn't plan ahead. You should. It's wise to have a will, a durable power of attorney, and a trusted person to handle things if you can't. But sharing the full picture prematurely, before it's necessary, can create pressure you didn't ask for. Suddenly, you're no longer trusted to make your own decisions. They are being made with you, or worse for you. Privacy is not secrecy. It's protection. You don't owe anyone your bank statements. You don't need to explain why you bought a new TV or donated to a cause you care about. Your money is yours. It's the result of decades of hard work, of sacrifices no one else may even know about. And the person most qualified to decide how it should be spent or saved is you. Protect your peace. Share only what needs to be shared when the time is right, and with people who genuinely respect your boundaries. Because once your finances become a topic of family discussion, you might find yourself defending decisions that no one else should be judging in the first place. Now let's talk about something that feels so natural to share: our health. After all, our bodies aren't what they used to be. The knees creak a little more than before, sleep isn't always restful, and some days we just don't feel like ourselves. It's normal. And when you love your family, it's only human to want to share those experiences with them. We think they care about me. They'll want to know. And often they do. But here's the part we rarely consider: how that information gets processed on the other side. See, when we casually mention, "My back's been acting up again," or "I felt dizzy the other morning," it may feel like just small talk to us. But to your children or grandchildren, those words carry weight. They love you. And because they love you, they may overreact. Not intentionally, but emotionally. What you see as a passing moment of discomfort, they hear as a red flag. And from that moment on, they may begin seeing you differently. Let me tell you about Claire. She's 76, widowed for a few years now, and still fiercely independent. She loves gardening, volunteers at the local library, and walks her little terrier around the neighborhood every morning. One day, after a full weekend of yard work, she mentioned to her daughter over coffee that her shoulders were sore. Just that, no complaints, just a little soreness. Her daughter's response? She panicked. She booked her a physical therapy appointment, started calling twice a day to check in, and even suggested hiring someone to help around the house. Claire was taken aback. She appreciated the love, sure, but she also felt handled, like she'd suddenly become fragile. Over time, her daughter started making comments like, "Are you sure you should be lifting that? Or maybe you shouldn't drive at night anymore." And Claire, who had always taken pride in her independence, began to feel like a child in her own life. All because of one offhand comment about sore shoulders. This is the subtle danger of oversharing health details, especially the small, non-urgent ones. You're not doing anything wrong by mentioning them. But you may be unintentionally shifting how your family sees you, from strong and capable to someone they need to protect or manage. That shift, once it starts, is hard to reverse. Now, don't get me wrong. If something serious is going on, if there's a diagnosis, a condition that affects your daily life, something that requires real support, of course you should share it. Your family should know. You deserve their help when it truly matters. But every little twinge, every stiff joint, every sleepless night, you don't need to broadcast it. Think of it this way. Sharing everything can sometimes create a narrative that doesn't reflect who you are. You might feel mostly fine, but your loved ones might begin to see you as declining faster than you are. That can lead to them making decisions for you, limiting your freedom, or just hovering a little too much. And that over time can be exhausting, not just for you, but for your relationships. You've lived in your body long enough to know what's serious and what isn't. You know when something's just part of aging and when it's a real concern. Trust that knowledge. And trust that you don't need to validate every cough or cramp with someone else's opinion. There's another angle to this too: your emotional space. Constantly talking about small health issues can start to make you feel like your life is shrinking. That everything is about what's wrong, what hurts, what's wearing down. And that's not the story you want to tell. You are more than your aches and pains. You are a full person with wisdom, joy, routines, hobbies, and quiet victories every day. Don't let the little discomforts dominate your narrative. I'm not saying you should suffer in silence or bottle things up. Not at all. Talk to your doctor. Keep track of symptoms. Take care of yourself with intention and awareness. But when it comes to family, be thoughtful. Choose when and how you share. And ask yourself, am I sharing to feel closer, or am I unintentionally giving away my independence? Because here's the truth. Peace in your later years doesn't come from having everyone worry about you. It comes from knowing yourself well enough to decide what matters and when to speak. That's not denial. That's dignity. Now let's talk about something many of us have learned the hard way: getting involved in family conflicts. At this age, we've seen our fair share of arguments. We've watched children grow apart, siblings fight over money, in-laws misunderstand each other, and old grudges resurface over things we thought were long buried. And, as the older generation, we often feel this tug to step in, to help, to offer advice, to smooth things over. But here's a lesson that comes only with experience. The more you say, the more risk you take. Especially in family matters, silence isn't weakness. It's wisdom. I'll give you a real example. Miriam, an old friend of mine from a walking group, told me about a moment she wishes she could take back. She's 80 now, sharp as ever, and the kind of woman whose opinion people naturally seek out. One afternoon, during a visit with her daughter, she mentioned, in the gentlest way, that maybe her grandson, who was 5 at the time, could start helping tidy up his toys. That was it. No lecture, no raised voice, just a soft suggestion. But her daughter didn't take it that way. She grew quiet, a little cold. The calls came less often. Invitations stopped. Miriam, who had only meant to help, was left wondering how one sentence could cause such distance. And, unfortunately, that rift never fully healed. That's the danger of sharing your real opinions in the middle of family conflict, or even in the most innocent-seeming situations. Because no matter how gently you say something, people hear through the filter of their own emotions. Your words might feel like support to you, but to them, it might feel like judgment, criticism, or taking sides. You try to help 2 adult children settle a disagreement, and suddenly both feel you're playing favorites. You express concern about your daughter-in-law's parenting, and your son pulls away. You mention that one family member seems to always borrow money, but never repay. And just like that, you become the one who stirs the pot. Even if your words are spoken with love, people remember them, sometimes more than they remember the original issue itself. You could be trying to calm things down, but end up being the one they resent most when the dust settles. Why? Because once you speak up, they associate you with the conflict, not the resolution. And over time, that can leave you isolated. So what should you do instead? Here's the truth I've come to live by. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to share your opinion just because you have one. You can love your family deeply without inserting yourself into every disagreement. You can be present without being pulled in. Sometimes the most powerful words you can say are, "I trust you to work it out," or simply, "I don't want to take sides, but I'm here if you need me." And then let go. Let them grow. Let them stumble. Let them learn the way you did by figuring it out themselves. Because you see, involvement might feel helpful in the moment, but in the long run, it rarely brings peace. What brings peace is protecting your own emotional well-being, being the calm eye of the storm, being the quiet, steady presence that doesn't react to every wave. And that doesn't mean you're uncaring. It means you've grown enough to know that not all battles need your participation. Your role, now more than ever, is to keep your heart steady, not just for them, but for you. You've seen what happens when people speak without thinking, when well-meaning advice turns into long-term wounds. And you've earned the right to step back, to watch, to hope, to pray, maybe, but not to be dragged into every fire. Because let's be honest, in this stage of life, peace is too precious. You've earned your wisdom. You've lived through enough family holidays, heated discussions, and misunderstood conversations to know. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is stay silent. Let them figure it out and love them from a gentle distance. Now let's talk about something much quieter than drama, but often heavier than any argument. Our regrets. At this stage in life, we've all got them. Even the most content and accomplished people carry a few what-ifs and I wish I hads. It's part of the human experience. You think about the opportunities you didn't take, the places you didn't go, the moments that slipped through your fingers. And sometimes, those memories start to surface in conversations, with our children, with our grandchildren, or even just in passing remarks over coffee. But here's something I've come to believe. Not every regret needs to be spoken aloud. Especially not in front of the people you love. Let me tell you about Norma. She's 79, a retired schoolteacher who raised 4 children while supporting her husband through years of illness. One afternoon, during a quiet walk with her youngest daughter, she sighed and said, "Sometimes I wish I hadn't let go of my dream to travel when I was young." It wasn't meant to hurt. It was just a thought, a flicker of reflection. But her daughter took it hard. Later, she admitted it made her feel like her mother's sacrifices hadn't been worth it. That somehow, she and her siblings had held her back. That maybe their life, the family they had, wasn't enough. That's the tricky thing about regrets. What feels like honest reflection to us can feel like rejection to others. We're trying to share something deeply personal, maybe even as a life lesson. But our loved ones often hear it through a different lens. When you say, "I wish I had worked longer," they may hear, "You weren't enough." When you say, "I should have moved to a different town," they may feel you were never truly happy where they were raised. You're trying to express your humanity, but it's easy for others to take it personally, even if you never intended that. There's another side to this too. The more we speak about our regrets, the more people begin to see us as someone stuck in the past, rather than someone still living in the present. It might make them pull back, thinking you're always looking backward instead of enjoying today. They might treat you more delicately, as if your best days are behind you, even when you don't feel that way at all. Now, don't misunderstand me. Your feelings are valid. Your regrets are real. You've lived a full life, and you've earned the right to reflect on it honestly. But some of those reflections are better kept close to the heart, not because they're shameful, but because they're sacred. Because sharing them too freely can accidentally hurt the very people you love the most. So instead of saying, "I wish I had done things differently," consider saying, "I've learned a lot from a life I've lived." That one shift in language carries wisdom without sorrow. It shows growth without guilt. It honors your story without placing a burden on someone else's shoulders. This isn't about pretending the past was perfect. It's about choosing to frame your journey in a way that brings peace, both to you and to those who care about you. You don't have to hide your emotions. You don't have to fake cheerfulness. But you do have the right to protect the emotional space between you and your family. And remember, peace in your later years doesn't come from rewriting the past. It comes from making peace with it, quietly, privately, with grace. Now let's talk about the 5th and final secret, one that many people believe they should share for the sake of fairness or clarity: your plans for your assets. We've all heard the advice, haven't we? Don't leave your family guessing. Make sure everyone knows what to expect. And there's some truth in that, up to a point. Having a legal plan in place, making a clear will, and choosing someone you trust to manage your affairs is important. Absolutely. But here's the piece of wisdom that isn't talked about enough. The details of what you plan to leave behind, who gets what, and how your estate will be divided. Those are things that can do more harm than good when shared too early or too openly. Let me tell you about Edna. She's 83, a retired nurse who spent her life saving, budgeting, and investing wisely. She's generous, thoughtful, and deeply loyal to her 3 adult children. Wanting to avoid confusion, Edna decided to tell each of them exactly what she was planning: how the house would be sold, how the accounts would be divided, even which heirlooms would go to whom. At first, it seemed like the right move. But within weeks, things began to shift. Her middle son, who had always been easygoing, suddenly started calling more often, offering opinions about how the house could be sold now, while the market was still good. Her daughter, who had moved out of state, questioned why she wasn't getting the same percentage as her siblings, since she had sacrificed so much by leaving home. And the youngest? He became distant, clearly uncomfortable with the whole conversation, but hurt all the same. What started as a thoughtful effort to be transparent turned into a storm of subtle competition, hurt feelings, and quiet resentment. And here's what Edna told me, word for word. "I felt like they started seeing the inheritance, not their mother." That's the risk. When you share your asset plans in detail, even with the best of intentions, it can stir up expectation, entitlement, jealousy, or distance. You may think you're bringing peace, but more often, you're opening a door to questions, comparisons, and unintended tension. And here's something else to consider. Once people know your plans, they may start looking at your life choices differently. Why are you still living in that house if it's going to be sold? Why spend money on a cruise now? Shouldn't you leave a little more behind for the grandkids? The pressure starts to build, not always through words, but through glances, tone, hesitation. That pressure chips away at something very important: your freedom to enjoy the life you built. Now, don't get me wrong. You still need a solid, legally sound estate plan. You still need a will and a power of attorney, and someone you trust to carry out your wishes when the time comes. But that doesn't mean you need to turn your retirement into a negotiation table. You don't owe your children a preview of your will like it's a chapter in a book. You don't need to justify your plans. What you choose to give or not give is your decision. Because true peace in this chapter of life isn't about how much you give away. It's about how freely you live. Your legacy is more than a dollar amount. It's the life you lead, the lessons you've passed down, the love you've shown consistently, quietly, faithfully. That's what your family will remember most, if you let them. And if someone only shows interest in you when the conversation turns to money, then you may need to ask yourself a hard but important question. Are they truly valuing you? Or just what you have? Protecting your plans isn't selfish. It's smart. It's respectful. And it ensures that you can enjoy your golden years without the shadow of judgment, pressure, or competition hanging over you. So let's wrap this up with a thought I hope stays with you. You've spent your whole life giving time, giving support, giving advice, giving comfort. But now is your time to guard something else, your peace. Peace is not a luxury for people our age. It's a necessity. A quiet home, a calm heart, the right to move through your day without feeling watched, judged, or second-guessed. And sometimes the way you protect that peace is not by putting up walls, but by choosing what to hold back. Not out of fear, not because you don't trust your family, but because you know the value of space, of privacy, of protecting your soul from noise that isn't helpful. So ask yourself, right now, what truths are worth sharing? And what truths are better held close? Not because they're secrets, but because they're sacred. If this message spoke to you, let us know in the comments. What's one thing you're choosing to keep just for yourself from now on? We read every word, and your story may help someone else find clarity too. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Join our growing family of wise, thoughtful seniors who know that peace isn't something you stumble upon. It's something you protect, one choice at a time. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until next time, take care of your heart, take care of your peace, and never forget you've earned it.